Hello, everyone. Welcome to Life Out Loud. I'm Junie Moon, your host, and I'm so excited to have you here today. I have a wonderful guest, but before I go into who she is and how exciting the show is going to be, and it's going to be exciting, I want to tell you a little bit about who I am and what Life Out Loud is about. So I do transformational coaching and shadow work. I'm a shadow work facilitator, certified shadow work facilitator. And what does that mean? That means I help people get out of their own way, break their sabotaging behaviors and limiting beliefs so that they can stand fully in their life and get fully expressed with who they're meant to be. That's my passion. And I work with individuals. I do workshops. I actually travel around the country doing workshops. And if you're interested in finding out how to lower the volume on your inner critic and standing strong and passionate in your life, you can go to my website, which is innercritictamer.com. And you can even pick up my free ebook there, How to Tame Your Inner Critic. And, well, all the information's there if you're curious. And because my passion is to help people soar in their life and be fully expressed and shine their light, I thought what a great idea it would be to create a show where I bring on other amazing people doing just such inspirational work, transformational work, leaders of our time that walk their talk, make a difference, and impact others. And so today's guest is one of those people that really touches a lot of people, helping them heal and have full lives. So let me tell you a little bit about Kimara. Kimara. Let me make sure I got the name right, Kimara. Kimara is a born psychic medium, Reiki master, and spiritual life coach. As a child, she often awoke with strange people sitting at the end of her bed trying to communicate with her from the other side. We're so talking about that. She eventually learned from her parents that this was not an unusual occurrence in their family. And as a result, she decided to hone her skills and use those gifts to help others. I mean, how amazing is that? Kimara has been a professional psychic medium for over 20 years, considered a no-tools reader. Kimara is able to tap into both her intuitive and mediumistic senses to provide an extremely accurate and detailed look at your life situation. Through communication with guides and departed loved ones, she delivers messages of love and hope from the other side. These specific messages are often able to assist her clients in letting go of the past so that they can fully live in the now. And, you know, she's the first psychic medium kind of person I've had on this show. But that's what I do, and that's what all the people that come on this show do, help people heal and live more fully. So I just thought, what a perfect person to have on our show. So let's get her up on the screen. Hello, Kimara.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me, Junie.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. It's such a treat to have you. And it really is a little bit of a different type of show. And you fit so perfectly, helping people really heal and relax into their lives and be able to be full. And that's so sweet. So I can't wait to find out more about you. But I have to ask you a quick question.
Okay.
You look so different than your pictures. I have to tell you, your hair, oh my God. Well, you know, the pictures were gorgeous. Now your hair is like, oh, so beautiful. My goodness. Did you just do this?
Actually, I did it over the summer. I had just taken all of my promo pictures for my business card and my flyers and my website. And I think I was just hormonal and I was hot. And I couldn't take it anymore. It was like wearing a big wool hat all the time. So after 20 plus years, I won't age myself, but after so long of having big curly hair, I was like, I can't. And to my hairdresser's great dismay, I had her shave it off and cut it all off, and it was very freeing for me. So I'm updating my pictures.
Well, you look absolutely stunning, and I just was like, oh, wow. so beautiful. So usually when we start the show, I like to let people know a little bit about my guest's journey to this point in time. And I certainly would like to know more of your story, especially the people sitting at the end of your bed. And at what age did that start? Were you scared? How did that feel? Can you give us a little bit of a taste of what it was like to have these things happen to you that brought you to this place today?
Yeah, sure. Well, some of those experiences were from my earliest memories, so I can't really pinpoint a time, maybe 3, 4 years old. I would have people walking out of my closets or through the door, or I would wake up and they'd just be standing over my face, leaning over me.
Wow.
Or sitting at the end of the bed trying to have a conversation, but it was almost like they were behind a pane of glass and I couldn't hear them. So it was absolutely terrifying.
Wow.
I'm a fan of going to sleep at night, so I think that's probably why I'm a huge night owl now. Um, but I talked to my mom, and she explained that that's something that is kind of runs in our family. And I later, my dad had a whole other family that he didn't know until he was in his late 50s. And when we were introduced to them, I met my aunt, and she looked at me very strangely, and she's like, "You were born over with a veil on your face." And I'm like, "Huh?" I was about 16 at the time. And I told her about some of the experiences that I was having, with people just showing up and I couldn't hear them and these things. And she goes, "Oh, honey, oh, we all do that." So unbeknownst to me, even on my dad's side, I didn't even find that out until I was 16, 17 years old.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, my mother was British, and they're very strict on bedtimes and in Europe. And she used to put me to bed at like 7:30 at night, every night, even in the summer, when all my friends would be outside playing. So another thing that I learned to do, because I was bored, would be astral travel. And I didn't know that's what it was at the time, but I would kind of alter my state and leave my body. And I would go downstairs in the living room and watch MASH and Sam, like, all of these things. I would go in spirit and sit with my parents and listen to their conversations. And I didn't really realize it wasn't something everybody could do, So I would come back the next day and tell them, like, "Oh, that was so funny when Fred Sanford said this or did that," or repeat what they had talked about that evening. And my mom and dad were like, "But you were asleep in bed." Like, how did you do that? So that was, those are some of my earlier memories of.
Wow. I got to tell you, I'm so envious. I mean, oh my God, to be, I've learned about all these things through the years, and the idea of astral travel and, being able to have that connection to the other side. What a gift that is. I remember when I was about 15, actually a little earlier than that, maybe 12, 13, we moved into this house. And again, my question is, was it my imagination? Was it real? Who knows, right? But I remember I always felt like there was a spirit. I never saw anything, but I was scared. I felt like in the night, there was a presence in the room, and I was really scared. And I remember taking my blanket and like making myself like a cocoon. I like tucked myself in from head to toe over my head, and I just was like, "Please don't hurt me." But I didn't know what to do. I didn't tell my parents, and eventually, I grew up and then I left the house, and it was a memory. But I wonder if I had reached out and somebody told me how to connect. So you told your parents. What happened then, and did you actually start talking to these people? I mean, you were so young and you were scared. Like, how did that happen, and how did that start to jive with you, and how did you get to connect with these people?
Well, it happened a lot, pretty much every night.
Wow.
And I just didn't get a lot of good sleep. My mother was just sort of like, "Oh, just ignore them, they'll go away," or "Just ask them what they want," but I couldn't hear them. So I just kind of learned to live with it or ignore it as much as possible. But then I realized that ignoring it is the worst thing you can do, because they will just bombard you.
Yep.
And bug you and wake you up at like 3:30 or 4:30 in the morning all the time. So it wasn't until maybe about, I'd say, actually probably about 5 years ago, that I actually learned to control the mediumship portion of my gifts, because it would just come and go and I really had no control over it. And I went to go study in Europe. I went to a place called the Arthur Findlay College of Mediumistic Studies. It's sort of like Hogwarts for me.
How cool is that?
It looks like Downton Abbey. It is the coolest place ever. It's on like 100 and plus acres, and it's this giant manor house with all these priceless antiques. And you go and talk to dead people all day, every day, and this intense mediumship program. And it's so cool. And that really helped me to kind of hone it in, tune it in, be able to understand that I have boundaries as a human with a body. I have rights, and I can tell them when and where they can speak to me, you know?
Wow.
Like, okay, I'm sleeping right now, so hands off, leave me be.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
they no longer walk into my room and things like that.
So when you were younger, and I see you have a question, I'll get there in a second, and anyone else who has questions, ask away. When you were younger and these people were at your bed, were these relatives, were these strangers that no one knew? And
Yeah.
did you talk to them when you were younger, and what happened when you were younger with that?
Well, I didn't talk to them. I would just do what you did and like cocoon myself
Yeah.
outdoors and leave lights on and things like that. I was terrified. I really didn't know much about it. My mom was just, you know, I had a much stronger gift than my mom, so but she did encourage it. She would do things like teach me to talk to her telepathically, things like that, you know.
Wow.
So she really helped to build and encourage my psychic abilities, but the mediumship, I was sort of out there on my own. So I remember one day I was in probably like 25, and I got so frustrated because I had a lot of sleep issues, you know, not being able to get a good night's sleep. And I finally had gotten some sleep, and I was like, oh yes, I'm asleep. And I feel them coming in, and I open my eyes, and there's an old lady sitting on the end of my bed who I didn't ever know any of these people. They were never anyone I knew. She's just like someone had muted her, you know? And I was like, lady, look, if you can't figure out how to talk to me,
oh my God,
you just go away. You know, I was so frustrated. And so, you know, I was really grateful as I started to develop to be able to understand it so that I could communicate and I could hear them. It really was a matter of me understanding the gift a little bit more. And that didn't come until much later when I really started to study.
Okay, great. I do see the questions, but I still have one more question before we go to the questions, which is if you could just pull apart the difference between what psychic is and what mediumship is. I'm pretty sure I know, but I just want to clarify the two being separate and how you use them. And when you talk about how you use them, I'm actually going to segue into the first question. Hello, Charmaine. We have Reverend Goddess Charmaine here, and she asked a few questions. And so when you discern between the two, the first question she had was, when you receive these messages, do you receive the messages for the living from the dead to help in this life? And I know that's a definite yes, because that's one of the things you help people with, is helping people in this life by communicating with people that have passed on. So maybe segue into like, explaining how that works and how you help people. But psychic mediumship, explain that.
I shall explain. Explain and to do.
Explain.
Okay, so all mediums are psychics. So let's start with that.
Interesting. Okay.
But not all psychics are
mediums.
Mediums talk to dead people. Plain and simple. You could make it sound fluffy if you like, but in a nutshell, mediums have the ability to communicate with the other side, with people and animals who have passed. Okay? Psychics more or less read your aura, and that is every ounce, every scrap of information about you, your health, your past, your present, your future, who you are. All of those things are contained within your energy field. And so it doesn't matter where you are. I do readings for people who are on the other side of the planet, and it's not even the same day. If it's they're in New Zealand or Australia, they're actually almost a day ahead. So it doesn't matter. I don't have to sit right in front of the person. With psychic ability, you can even read objects that hold energy. If I were to take my ring off and give it to a psychic, they should be able to read that energy through the ring. So that's called psychometry. So basically, psychics read your energy and mediums talk to dead people. So the way that I like to explain it, it's not woo-woo, airy-fairy. It's more quantum physics, to be honest. The energy, can never be created nor destroyed. That's, I think, the first law of thermodynamics. And they'll probably, if that's wrong, I'm sure they'll let us know on the comment. But, just because our body, if the physical body dies, that intelligent soul, that energy that resides and is housed within the body, still continues to live. So I believe that it just goes into a different dimension that we generally can't perceive as human. Young children, before they get language skills and develop logic, they usually can see on the other side. So when you see children laughing at the corner, or, you know, tracking babies that are tracking their eyes all over, I think that they're looking at spirit.
Yep.
Animals, you might have a dog that just starts to bark at the, you know, at grandpa's chair.
Yep. Yep.
No reason, jumps up and starts barking. Cats, they're very perceptive. Our pets can sense this. So yeah, so a medium basically is able to kind of tune our radio frequency just that little bit higher. I'm totally going to date myself with this, but remember the rabbit ears, you know, on the radio? So or the TV, where you kind of had to turn the dial and, you know, tune the rabbit ears a little bit, the antenna, just to get it just right so that you can pick up that frequency.
Yep.
I have to raise my vibration and my energy, and they have to slow theirs down on the other side so that we can find what's called, you know, through entrainment, you know, be able to find the same frequency, that same vibrational frequency, so we can get on the same wavelength. And from there, what happens for me is they're able to transmit information to me, either through my own memories, or it has to already be in my file cabinet, so to speak. It has to be something I'm familiar with. I can't talk about something that I've never done or seen or don't even have any familiarity with.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
I have to try to link it to something it has to go through my filter so I can speak.
Right.
And then from there, I get images. Sometimes I actually feel like I'm placed inside of a scene, and I can look around and say who's there and what's going on. Sometimes I can hear them. You know, they can actually talk to me. I might get flashes or images or symbols. So it all comes in different ways, and it's just a matter of me trying to accurately decipher what it is that they're trying to say.
And so when somebody comes to you and says, you know, this is what's happening in my life and I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z, you can then go into your energetic entrainment and connect to some people from the other side for them to help them and guide them in healing. Like, how does that work?
Well, we have to keep in mind that just like here, everyone on the other side has free will. So I can't like get the spiritual lasso and go rope someone in and say, all right, you talk to them. But a lot of times what I find happens is that in the course of a reading, say if someone's mother has passed, they're going to want to put their 2 cents in. So they naturally start to, you know, kind of make their presence known. And I'll just get kind of thoughts that are just sort of overshadowing my own. You know, like as I'm reading, they're not ever my thoughts anyway, but it's sort of, it'll interrupt my train of thought. And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I think I have someone here with me. And then I'm like, okay, well, tell me about yourself. And they'll give me a little bit more information from there.
Okay. Yeah. And what about the spirits that may not be at rest? Charmaine asked, you know, can you help spirits get some resolve, I guess, in their life and have more peace?
Yes, I actually do house clearings. So that's one of the things that I actually live in a house that was haunted. My house was built in 1780, so I got a lot.
Perfect. You're the perfect tenant, someone to talk to.
Yeah, there was a lot going on. So it was you know, I actually did a clearing for a lady whose son was being tormented. He's about 5 and he couldn't, he had special needs, and he was really having a hard time being in this room. So I was able to clear the house, clear the room, send those, you know, spirits across and cross them over and help them, because I felt like they were very stuck. So sometimes, you know, people get stuck if they're too attached to this, too attached to this plane. And or if they die very quickly, very tragically, sometimes they get very confused and don't realize that they've passed.
And so you're able to talk to them and kind of guide them just because you're connected to them and show them whatever it is that you show them and where they are and what they can, what the true reality is for them now. I mean, like if they've had a tragic passing, then they're not even sure that they're dead. I mean, this is just like, you just start to chat with them. I'm like, how does that work?
Pretty much, and just let them know, hey, you didn't make it. We're at the scene. Like, they can take me to the scene of their passing.
Wow.
I can be very gentle with them, but you have to be kind of firm as well and say, hey, okay, now it's time for you to cross over.
Mm.
I want to make a note to let you know that people can come and go because energy doesn't have a home anymore. So they can cross very easily and freely between dimensions. So I don't want people to think that when I'm able to connect with a relative on the other side, like, oh my God, they must be stuck. They're not at peace. That's not the case. They actually do work there to try to help us on this side. So, we don't get to just go float around on fluffy clouds and, singing with the angels and playing harps all day. There's work to be done there. And there's a lot of healing to be done there. So, it's very important to know that they're not stuck just because they're coming to communicate.
That's beautiful. I mean, what I'm hearing is you're healing people here, you're healing people on the other side, and that's just such an amazing gift. We have Dave here, and Dave said, passing on a happy birthday today to my mom, Sally, who would have been 77 today. She passed April 9th last month.
Aww.
Big heart to you. Big love to you, Dave. And happy birthday, Dave's mom.
Happy birthday, Sally.
Yeah. And another question from Charmaine. She said, and this is an interesting question, does your ability hurt or help your personal relationships? So how does your ability affect you in your life and impact you?
Well, my kids can't get away with much, I'll say.
Sucks to have a psychic mom.
I can be in a totally different room, and remote viewing is one of my gifts. And I think all moms have this gift, though. I really do. Because when things get quiet, you just start to scan, and you're like, no. And you know who it is, too.
Wow.
I have a house full, so I have 5 children. So the thing is that, and it freaks them out every time, but it's very funny. I'm able to just look at them, and their aura turns gray, and it like shrinks up to their body, like plastic wrap, and I'm like, you're lying. No, I'm not lying. I'm like, you are.
Wow.
And it creates like a jangling discomfort, in my body. It's sort of like nails down a chalkboard, like the kind of feeling when people lie.
Yep.
One of the things I've had to be really clear about, which hasn't been a problem with my friends, is that don't share this gift, is there has to be a line where like they don't really ask for readings or anything like that. So, because I don't want to be working all the time. You know what I mean?
I get it. That's healthy boundaries for you, which allows you to have a life too,
And it has to go the other way around as well, because sometimes I get stuff and I'm like, ooh, maybe I need to shut up, because I'm bossy anyway. So, like I give advice all day. So sometimes when I see something, I'm like, what they say, if you see something, say something, but not all the time, because it gets my friends' nerves. So there's definitely a good balance that has to be struck there. I have to say though, when I was dating, it was a little awkward to tell people like, oh yeah, I talk to dead people.
Whenever I hear that, I always think of that movie with Bruce Willis. I see dead people.
Exactly.
It's amazing. It's really cool. So I'm going to do something a little different with the show today. Usually we wait till the end for you to tell people how to get in touch with you and some of your work. What I'd like to do is, we're going to have Kimara do a demonstration. She offered to do a psychic demonstration. And I think, in reference to timing and energetics, I don't want to oh gosh, we're running out of time. And she hasn't told anybody how to get in touch with her. So what I'd like to do is, why don't you tell everybody, how you work, where they can find you, anything you want to tell them about, whatever is coming up for you, so that they know and they could take advantage of anything that's happening. And then if you guys are interested, if anybody wants to be the demonstration, plunk in your yes in the chat box, and Kimara, you could just energetically pick a name and do your thing, I guess. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, great.
Okay, so you can find me on theblessedself.com. That's the BLESSED self.com. And I was going to offer anybody who has been watching our broadcast today or on the replay, if you book a half-hour video or phone reading, the price is normally $80, and I would give it to you for $50. And all you have to do is just mention Junie Moon, and there's a little, when you book it, just mention it, bypass the pay, and I will adjust the price for you. And also, this week, if you're local to the Doylestown area or Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, or Southern New Jersey, I'm actually going to be teaching a course on the 21st and 22nd of May. Psychic development course. It's an intro to psychic development, and on there we will be on this at this course. It's a it's a group course, and it will be through Susan Duval Events, or you can find information about it on my website as well under events. And it'll be a great class. We're going to learn dowsing. We're going to learn the pendulum. We're going to learn telekinesis, which is moving objects with your mind.
Huh.
Psychometry.
That really works?
It really does. Psychometry, which is blind readings on just, some object that the person owns. And then we're going to finish up the weekend course with actually doing one-on-one readings. So, beautiful. And I did it in November. I held a retreat, and I did this then, and we had 100% success rate. No one went home without being able to do every single thing. It was so much fun.
Wow. That sounds so cool. So you can start looking at the chat room. I'm just going to read a couple more things. So Michael said, hello, Kimara. Housing in law, Michael here. I'm not sure what that means, but I'm assuming you know. My question is, there's a question. When people pass on, can they look down upon us at will, or do they have limitations when they can make a visit? Well, she had mentioned that actually before about that we have free will, they have free will, I guess, but there's some boundaries. Did you want to just mention anything else in addition with his question, and then we'll move on to your demo?
A lot of people don't realize that they have the boundaries, that they're allowed to set boundaries and say, look, I'm asleep, guys, because there's no time or space over there. So they don't know, hey, it's 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm waking you up because you're relaxed and we're quiet and our minds are relaxed and open, and that's the easiest time for them to reach out to us. But what was the other part of the question? They look down on us and they will have limitations with. So, one of the things that will block them from coming, because I have had parents that say, they have lost a child, and it's the most awful thing ever, or spouses who've lost someone, their spouse, and they're like, they come visit my kids, or or they go visit their friends or whoever, but they don't come to me, and they're so upset about that. But I think profound grief is one of the greatest barriers to spirit. So it creates such a blockage that it makes it even difficult for a good psychic or medium to even read that person.
Wow.
Yeah, so it
makes a lot of sense,
because it actually creates like a wall around you, and you could recognize that even without having that gift, is that when someone's in a profound state of depression, sadness, grief, or even anger, it completely blocks their energy, and you would feel that even being alive and well here on this planet, but it's very difficult for them to break through that.
Wow, that's so cool. I just FYI, in the chat box, I wrote the website, which is theblessedself.com. And so, Kimara, we have a bunch of people saying, yes, yes, pick me, pick me. So go inside and figure out who you want to bless with a demo psychic reading.
Okay, would it be possible for them, I know we're all over the place, but to write a first and last name?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to go with Sarah. Can she hear me? Sarah, if you could go in the chat box and just jot your first and last name if you want me to read you.
Okay. Might take a second because we don't know where she is.
Okay.
So Sarah, you've been picked, but she needs your first and last. Well, you got the first one. So Sarah, we need your last name. We got a thanks, and we got a Gallman. Are you Sarah from, are you my girl Sarah Gallman from West Milford? It's all right. Go ahead, Kimara. Do your thing.
Can she, I don't see the name. Did she write it?
Yep, it's Sarah Gallman, Gallmann.
Okay. All right. So just give me 1 second. So I feel like Sarah's. Oh gosh. It's in the house. My goodness. All right.
That was good.
Okay. So what I'm picking with Sarah, the first thing I'll do is I'll just kind of connect briefly with your personality, Sarah. I feel like you're someone who has a lot of energy, and you are someone who's kind of like bubbly and excited, and I feel a lot of childlike energy coming from you. And if you could type in, if that makes sense to you, yes or no, in the chat box, that would be helpful. It's kind of hard when I'm not actually talking to them.
Right, and there's going to be a little lag time too, so.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, so,
Yes.
yes, okay, all right. And I feel like Sarah has a very generous spirit, very giving. She's the type of person who will jump right in. And if this is yes, just keep typing, or if it's no, say no. But she'll jump right in and help where it's needed.
You got a yes.
She has a very open sense, you know, people, open smile, easy laugh. Does this make sense for you, Sarah?
Makes sense.
Okay, great. And I feel like you have a very open mind. Now, would you have been raised like very Catholic, or very like in an organized religion, whether it be very Catholic or Jewish or something?
Yes.
Because I feel like you have broken past that. You still have that very strong sense of value that was placed on you, placed with you, with your parents. But I feel that with that, you have opened your mind and expanded things beyond that. Would that make sense spiritually for yourself?
Yes, she said yep.
Okay, so with that, I would say, you know, that's really wonderful. I actually feel like you have a very strong connection already with your spirit guides. Do you already communicate with them through meditation or something like that?
First, she said she's a minister's daughter.
Ah, yeah. I really felt that strong connection with like organized religion. So
The question again for her about the meditation.
I don't know if she meditates or what it is, but I feel like she intentionally opens herself up to spirit.
Yes, definitely, she said.
Already communication happening there, and they're very, very excited actually that I got to communicate with her today, because I feel like this is something she's been wanting, she's been looking for, is to find some guidance to open this up even more for herself.
Yep, she said she'd like to deepen that connection. Yes, she meditates.
Yes, and what I'm getting is, I feel like this is something she's had to do in the shadows. I almost see her like this, like, don't look, you know, because she's got such a very strong, as a minister's daughter, first kid, I get it, you know, that you would be the person, what do they call those, PKs, preacher's kids, you know, where you would have, you don't want to disappoint anyone, but this is your calling, this is who you are. And at this point, I would say, are you about 37, 38 years old? Early 40s, something like that? I'm just getting like you're kind of at that point.
Yep, PK, she said. So you got the PK. Now let's see about the age thing.
I'm getting around 30, between 38 and 42. I don't know, like somewhere around that age. She's a very young energy to me. And I feel like she's kind of at that cusp where you start to take in your own, like, I'm gonna chart my own course, and I really need to do what's gonna work for me. And
she said she wishes she was younger. She's almost 58 on Saturday. Happy birthday!
You feel very young to me. Your energy is very young, very vibrant, and I feel like you actually are ready to step into this and come into your own. I feel like you're at a point where I see a crossroads for you. And it's sort of like fitting in the box doesn't work for you anymore.
She said, thank you.
Yes. Yeah. So I hope that that was helpful.
Thank you. That was awesome. That was so awesome. I still want to know, Sarah, if this was if you're the Sarah that I know from my neck of the woods. Beautiful. So can you tell us a little bit more about like how you work with people? Like, how do you really help people do their healing work? In this life?
Well, with the mediumship, the way that I would say is most healing for people is to have those words that were sometimes unspoken between us, between their loved ones and themselves. I have so many people that their parents were of that generation where they just didn't tell them they loved them, or proud, or that they were proud of them. I get a lot of people who had very critical parents. Like if you come home with an A, it's like, well, why wasn't that an A plus? And and those things kind of stick with us as we grow up. And the two questions there's three questions that I get the most. Do they love me? Are they proud of me? And are they happy?
Oh, yeah.
And most of the time, I'd say 90% of the time, I can say yes.
That's beautiful.
That they're able to come through. But there are some people that they take that angry personality with them, and when they do, they have healing that they have to do. One of the things that I've been shown is that a person who dies with a tremendous amount of hate, anger, bitterness, resentment, these very heavy negative feelings, murderers, people who die of suicides, that need a lot of healing. One of the things that I've been told by those that have come through is that they're almost placed in sort of like an egg, like a womb-like place where it's just tons and tons and tons of love and divine energy. And they are actually able to learn through empathy. And the way that I understand this way of learning with the empathy is because they're not housed in a physical body, that energy can transcend time and actually blend with the person's soul that they hurt at that moment. So, say for example, a person like Hitler has hurt millions and millions and millions of people, or Genghis Khan, or someone like that, his soul would actually have to go to each person that he affected and hurt and feel that hurt from their point of view so that he can learn through that empathy.
Wow.
Not punishment, it's soul growth. Because that's what they told me when I said, is there a hell? And it was like, well, no, but that could take quite a long time depending on how how many people you would be involved with. But it's a great way for them to be able to step in, and not just like a review where they're sitting back and there's like a big movie and you just watch your life, like that, is it with that Mel Brooks movie or whatever, where they're just kind of watching their life, and it's sort of a third-hand experience. They actually are feeling what it would be like how their actions impacted other people. And they go to this place of just overwhelming amount of love.
It just makes me think about, just even on this plane, when somebody is able to just deeply love somebody, just to pour love into somebody, and they haven't experienced that with just presence, somebody giving somebody loving presence, how healing that is. I mean, we know that. We've felt it. Yeah. And how you're describing this, it's like, whoa, to have such an extreme energetic experience on this planet, and then to be in that realm feeling all of that, like that's what happens. And you're like, okay, now you're gonna have your review, but you're gonna have this energetic experience. I mean, it's beautiful the way you're describing it. It's beautiful. I wanted to say, Sarah said, thank you so much, such a gift, more than you know. And then I have another question for you. How does this work for you? I mean, having psychic ability, how does it affect you, your life choices, your ability to move in your life? How much can you see about what's going to come up for you? And does that cause you pain, challenges, discomfort, versus some of, most of us are kind of blind, so to speak. I mean, I go in and I just signed a lease on a house and sold my house, and instinctually I knew that was right for me, but I didn't, I don't necessarily have like strong psychic ability. I go into my intuition and I feel it, but you're way ahead of me. So how does that impact you?
Well, interestingly enough, psychics can't read themselves. I wish we could, I might break out the pendulum every now and then, but I have friends who are amazing psychics as well, and mediums. So we help each other and we read for each other. But as far as for myself, I mean, if it's a major thing, life-threatening or something like that, I see I will see the whole scene play out in my head like a movie 3 times. A good example was I was having a drunken debaucherous night when I was in my early 20s and thought I was hot and cute.
You are.
I was at some bar with some famous basketball player out in Cancun being, just drunk and silly. And he's like, hey, why don't we go back? And he's like, we'll ride back to the hotel. We stayed in the same hotel together. And he goes, why don't we ride back on my chariot? And the chariot was a moped.
Wow.
And I thought, oh, hell no, I'm not that drunk, I was. So, but I saw an accident 3 times play in my head and I ignored it. And I got on the moped and we had a head-on collision with someone else.
Wow.
And you do not want to end up in a Mexican hospital. Trust me, especially not drunk. So it was a very, that was a huge lesson for me. And that was about 20 plus years ago. But was I have to listen to my intuition and never discount your intuition because it's very strong, and the more you trust it, the more you're able to trust it.
Yep.
So, don't doubt that and don't say, oh, it's just my intuition. It's the same thing. It's just that I have the ability to tune into other people. But when it comes to myself, when I get that same block, that kind of gut check and I'm thinking like, no, that doesn't feel so good. It doesn't feel right. I will get quiet and I will go in and sometimes I'll ask my spirit team, and I work a lot with my ancestors. And I'll be like, my mom's on the other side and I'll chat with her and I'll be like, what's up with that? It doesn't feel right, So when there are major life-changing things, I see them before they happen. I'll dream about them and it'll be like recurring dreams or images that just don't go away and they're just played over and over. And when that happens, I know I have to pay attention. And it took me a long time to finally listen to myself, but you have to.
That's so interesting. So do you get tired? Does it energetically zap you when you're holding space and connecting to the other side and using your psychic ability? Or is it just like breathing air?
Well, while I'm doing it, I feel charged up, and sometimes, especially when I'm going to do a gallery, the galleries are the group readings. So I do those from anywhere from an intimate setting of 8 people to a whole room full of people of, 200 people. And it requires me to keep my energy up for 2 to 3 hours, especially when I'm doing a private group that's like 8 to 15 people. I make sure every single person gets a reading.
Wow.
And it's a medium reading. So it's like keeping that energy very high, but I also rely on the audience too.
Mm-hmm.
It's their energy, their intention, their desire and their will for someone to come through energizes me. I send it to them, they come through, and it sort of becomes a circuit where we work synergistically together and are able to really seal that connection. But when I get with somebody, a private client or even a group of people where the energy's low, or if I've done groups where they've been drinking, it's at after dinner or something like that, or there's people who I call it giving the gas face. I always tell them before any gallery, I said, do not do this. I said, if I show up to your job and do that, trust me, you're not going to like it. But I talk to people who you can't see. So if you knock my confidence, I can't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that does get very draining because you have to work past other people's blocks.
Yep.
And I had one the other night with a gentleman that he lost 2 brothers in 3 months. And I was getting little bits and pieces, but he was in a room full of women and he was the only guy. And the emotion was welling up with him, but he tightened it all up and he didn't want to open. And so it used a lot of energy for me to try to pull something through with him.
Yeah.
And they were there and wanting it, but I couldn't get the circuit going between us. So it was not the most successful reading at that point. Everybody else, he was the last one and everyone else was, getting messages left and right, and his was like pulling teeth.
Wow,
So
it makes sense.
And afterward, I'm still kind of like on a high. And then it's sort of like a sugar rush. And once that buzz goes, I'm like, thunk.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Because I see you as a vehicle. You know, it's like things are moving through you and you're shifting your energy. And I would think that as a human being holding that and manipulating that energy and, you know, honing in on all of that, I would think it's like, you know, some recuperation might be necessary. I can't believe we're out of time. I had a couple more questions, but oh well, we'll have to chat another time. But oh my God, thank you so much for sharing all this. I wanted to share another post by Jocelyn, who said, Kimara has read for me and she's truly amazing. Yes, she is.
Hi, Jocelyn. Thank you.
So thank you everyone who was here. I wish we had like hours more. Kimara, you are such a lovely guest and what a gift to people, because I know, you know, losing people is so painful, and not knowing how they are and feeling that disconnection. To be able to connect in that way is so healing. I had a reading many, many years ago. I don't know if you know George Anderson, but do you know George Anderson?
No, I don't.
So he was, you know, a long time ago, you know, and he's still around, I'm sure, does mediumship and talks to dead people. And my God, my dad came through instantly and said things that only my dad would know. In fact, he said something about my mother, and I called my mother and I said, hey, you know, what happened to X, Y, and Z? And she was like, how did you know that? I didn't tell you that. I was like, well, Dad told me, you know? And from that point on, even though when I lose somebody, it's still so painful because it's lost and I'm not going to have them in my life in the same way. There's something very comforting to know that it is just a shift of energy. And I do have access to them in some ways. And just hearing what you said, I hope it did bring some peace to some of you. If you want to connect with Kimara, you can go to theblessedself.com. Kimara, thank you so much for being here.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. So blessings to everyone, and go have an amazing day. Much love to you all. Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye.